Hey, all, it is Jon here again, and we've got another fantastic guest to bring so much insight and knowledge. I know you're going to love this guy. He is fabulous with his expertise, the way he's going to present. Everybody, we've got Nick Adams from Midwest Fabricating with us today. Nick, thank you again for being part of Project Barndo and sharing all your knowledge with our viewers, listeners, and readers.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited to be here. What all information would you guys like to go over today?
So today we're going to be talking about, metal frame structure. So it's like barndominiums, right? So you get out there and say, okay, you can build a barndominium, but what does that look like? You got, wood buildings, metal buildings, the hybrid buildings, but your specialty is metal, and you're going to share with us like why that is, what brought you to it, kind of the pros and cons. You're going to give us the education on metal barndominiums.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of pros and cons, I think. Like you say, there's so many different avenues right now. There's post frame, there's, your stick, there's carport style, which is coming around now as, inflation's taking a toll on everybody. There's now cold form, which is different and cool. There's red iron. There's a lot of different options. So, and I sell a few different options. My specialty, I say our expertise, we do red iron, either I-beam or H-beam style buildings. And what probably sets us apart from most red iron is 90% of ours is all hand fabricated, custom made on the spot. So when we're building a custom home, especially when your land contour is not flat, we really strive in those areas. So we just got done building a building in Table Rock, Lake, Missouri. Eagle Rock is actually the name of the town, but we build quite a bit down there, Lake of the Ozarks, some of those places. So a lot of times, if you have something engineered and it calls for, let's say, 3x3 pier columns that are 3 foot deep, when you go to drill a 3 foot deep pier column at Table Rock Lake, you're going to hit a rock shelf real quick. It's inevitable. It happens all the time. And if you've already ordered a pre-engineered bolt together metal building, also it's a red iron option. And you run into a situation like that when you go to do your foundation, it can be extremely costly. And when you do a hand-built structure, and I drill down 8 inches and I hit a rock shelf, you can get the same load-bearing value out of a stem wall. You just have to call your engineer and say, here's our problem. We can only get 3 inches deep. I need a footing stem wall, if you will, that has the same load value. Do the calculations. Tell me how high above ground I need to go. You can change it in a day. It's very streamlined. So there's no sending this building kit back to wherever you got it from on whatever semi and having it re-engineered because now we got to do a stem wall. It's a very easy process. So I do pre-engineered metal buildings as well. They all have their pluses and their minuses, I should say. Obviously, I'm more partial to my own kit, but
Sure.
I do a lot of different steel options. I do not do any type of wood structures anymore. I stick to strictly steel at this point as far as the shell goes.
Well, and we had a conversation too about, like, not to be biased, but it's like you owned a wood structured building, so you personally have gone through that, right? Like that was
I did.
Yeah.
My wife and I and our kids, we lived in a post frame. Here's the upside to any wood built structure, and is the cost. And you can't compete with somebody that's building something out of 2x4s when you're using massive I-beam.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. It shouldn't, So at this time in our life, we were on our second child. We were on an extreme budget. We still are on a budget, just like anybody, but it was extremely budget then. And post frame was far more affordable. There was a lot of learning lessons in that scenario. Everything I've taken from that experience, it was a good experience. I don't regret it. but it's the reason I don't offer them anymore. There was a lot of things at that point that I have based my whole business around now. And so, like I say, it was a good learning lesson. It was in the budget that we needed, and I understand budgets, and I'm very clear with, when somebody calls me, I'm very forthright about telling them, if you're shopping strictly price, I'm not. Midwest Erecting and Fabrication is not going to be your contractor. We're just not. So if you're looking for a product that's going to last my lifetime, my kid's lifetime, that is what we're selling. So there's a lot of, negatives to the post frame, but it does, wood's been around forever. So
yeah, right.
It's, it has its ups and downs, but there's other options. Even on steel buildings, I do not offer a 29 gauge sheathing. On a big building, you can save thousands and thousands of dollars, but I don't offer it because I consider myself a premier builder, and I have a great reputation that's getting known nationwide for the quality of work we do. And that goes from the building kit to the concrete to the dirt work to your windows, your man doors, your sheathing, the labor to erect it, install it, and especially on a hand fabricated structure, there's not very many fabricators or companies out there that possess the know-how and the quality to build something with a stack of iron off a semi. So I also don't do any guesswork. I know there's a lot of people. You do have to be careful in the weld together world because especially in Oklahoma and Texas area, they don't require a lot of engineer stamp blueprints. So what you do run into is people are still advertising steel building, and it is, but nothing's engineered, and there's a lot of guesswork.
Yeah,
I rarely advertise down in either one of those states because the lack of educated or just incompetent builders out there that are trying to cut your price is overwhelming. So I don't guesswork anything. I don't care if I built the same building on this side of the road and the neighbor across the street says, hey, I want that exact same building right here. I've had that very similar incident. Do I know exactly what size beam it takes to build it? Absolutely. I'm still going to pay to have it engineered. It's a piece of paper that I can keep in my file and the customer can keep in their file, and it's cheap insurance. And you should always have it engineered. That way there's zero guesswork. And even if that particular incident, I knew exactly what beam it was because I built one a mile down the road. I still have it engineered. That way the customer knows, I know, the county knows. Even, everything around here has to be engineered. But even in counties that don't, I just do it because.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but even though you go down quarter mile down the street, if soil conditions or something about that site changes, and then all of a sudden you've got, like you said earlier on, you start with a foundational issue.
Yeah.
Then you got problems, right? If you're not going with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as you get farther north, as you have a greater snow load. So even up in the Kansas City area is a little different than here. They have a lot harsher weather. You start getting down south. I sold a Barndominium kit to a gentleman in Fort Myers, Florida yesterday. Their wind speed there in the hurricane world is far greater than it is in Kansas. So your engineering has to match where it's going in the world. Clearly, they don't have any snow load in Fort Myers, Florida, but you have to worry about wind speed as well. So everything that we offer is engineered. It's done right, and it's done from start to finish that way. So it starts at your dirt work, and like you say, it goes to your concrete and your footings and your piers and so on and so forth. So what we try to offer is a product that's as maintenance free and is going to have the longest longevity of anything out there. So
how will that work, Nick? So you said you ship to a guy in Florida. He has to hire his own contractor to erect. Then what happens with that? Do you have like contacts in multiple states?
I have done this a few different ways, and I'm changing my policies right now. So it's kind of getting different.
Okay.
up until a few months ago, honestly, anything within a 5-hour radius of Wichita, Kansas, and I would sell a do-it-yourself kit. When I'm selling a do-it-yourself kit, it is the same design that I am welding together here from a hand fabricated standpoint, but everything is simplified and everything's 100% bolt together.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different than a pre-engineered style building, and I'll explain that here in a second. But I make it as do-it-yourself friendly as possible because that's what I advertise. Is it difficult? Absolutely. Anything that is rewarding in life is difficult, but it's doable. And I make everything bolt together, make it as easy as possible. I used to offer to anybody that was outside of my 5-hour travel area, I would offer different subcontractors and say, here's a list of subcontractors that I can get you in touch with, and what they charge you and what you guys negotiate, and your final quality of product is between you and whatever subcontractor you decide to go with. That worked out pretty good for a while, and it still works out. I've started getting in the middle of some of those. So this gentleman in Fort Myers, Florida, is one of the first ones that we're going to travel at a great distance for. And I help with subcontractors, or I go with them. It just depends on what the customer's wanting. I've set it up to a point now, and I've got enough people on board that I can help out with projects like that. Even if I'm never personally being on them myself, I will show up at the beginning of the project, usually at the middle and at the end. So I don't do a ton of those a year because we are a relatively small company out of Wichita, Kansas. I'm not, a huge company by any means. And what we specialize in is a little bit different than most companies. So I try to not get too crazy as to where I'm going to travel. And same as with Turnkey. I will do shell barndominiums, which I consider shell, your concrete, your building material, and the labor to erect it. Whether you're supplying windows or whether I am, we'll put your windows in, we'll build your porches. If you drove by it on the road, it's going to look like it's a finished home, but you walk in the front door and it's an empty shop. I think different contractors have different conceptions of a shell, and I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. That's just mine. So if you're within a 5 or 6 hour radius and I'm building it 5 or 6 hour radius, Wichita, Kansas, all I offer is the shell because it's a little much, and I do value my mental capacity and stability. And when you start getting into a lot of stuff and you're 5, 6 hours away from home and you have an issue, it's a lot of work. And a lot, I would say 85% of my clientele is wanting to do the interior work themselves anyway.
Wow. Okay. All right.
There is a big portion of the barndominium world that is trying to build a barndominium to save money. And nobody really wants to very few people, I should say, want to try to tackle the entire project start to finish. But if you can have a standing structure and your windows are in the dry, is what most of us call it, it is far easier to undertake, okay, I got to hire a framing crew now. I have to hire an electrician. I have to hire a plumber. It makes it a little bit easier. It's still a big job. I mean, I'm a licensed general contractor. That's my job every day, day in and day out. And it's still not easy. And it takes a certain type of person to do it. And then there's the people that don't want to mess with any of it. Just build me a turnkey home. What I consider a turnkey home is move-in ready. You bring your furniture and your clothes and you start living. So if you're within the 45-minute range of Wichita, Kansas, we do turnkey barndominiums. I don't think we'll venture off and do outside of that anytime in the near future, but I'm not saying I won't. I'm just kind of keeping myself in grasp. I don't want to get too big and get too spread out. So, which I feel like I already am the way it is.
No, that's great. So you got me intrigued. One of the things I've actually got a couple questions I'm holding on to in my head here, so because you keep on pumping out all this great information. Right. what happens? So you got your shell up. You're framing on the inside. So what does that look like? You got these big red iron structures, and then you've got some type of exterior wall, with purlins and girts and stuff. Kind of like, is that all metal, and you're tying it in and coming in interior with wood? Can you give a little bit of what that looks like?
Yeah. So I probably do this a lot different than most people, and okay. I'm probably telling you secrets I probably shouldn't. But so when you go to buy a pre-engineered metal building, your columns and your rafters are going to be tapered every single time. And what I mean by that is you might be 9 inches wide of a column at the bottom of your building, and it's doing this as it's going up. Okay. And it is designed that way for deflection and collateral load and a lot of different values. But and it works really great for what it's designed for. But and if that's an airplane hangar, it doesn't matter. It's great. When you start getting that into a barndominium and it's a custom home, you have to falsify what this beam is coming out into your living room or bedroom or kitchen or fill in the blank. I, up to 80 foot wide, I always keep a 12-inch wide H-beam or I-beam. So I just engineer it different per height and per width and snow load and every value that goes into that. But that way, you're always having a 12-inch I-beam. And when you put an 8-inch girt on I do what's called a flush mount, which another thing, most pre-engineered bolt together metal buildings do what's called a bypass. So your girts are going on the outside of your column, the outside of your beam, basically. Yep. I do an inset and I do what's called a flush mount. So 8 inches of that 12-inch I-beam is taken up with a steel girder. That leaves a 4-inch void. It's not exactly a 4-inch because when you get a 8-inch 14 gauge purlin, it's not bent exactly. So it's usually 8.5. So you'll have a 3.5, 3 3/4 void. And what that allows is you to build your 2x4 stud wall, which is honestly not it's not a 4-inch value anyway. Right. It's not the exact same dimension as what your void is left inside your girt. So when you stand that stud wall up, your sheetrock goes right across your 12-inch I-beam. So wow. you have nothing to falsify coming out into anything. And okay. I build these buildings even if somebody's already bought the building kit from somebody else, and depending on how wide and tall the building is, I mean, it can be 10 inches wide at the bottom and 28 inches wide at the top. You can wrap that in sheetrock and make it look very fancy, but nonetheless, it's there. And so
that's interesting. So I think about this because I hear some people talking about like thermal transfer, when they're having pockets in for your spray foam. So if that runs flush against that beam, do you get any thermal transfer from
None? Nope.
None. Okay.
I'm a huge spray foam fan.
Okay.
I'm closed cell, I should say. I don't spray any open cell, but okay. There's a lot. I used to do like a 2 and 3 inch closed cell spray foam on your sidewalls and on your roof, and then put your girts in there, and then you could fill that with a bat. But what I realized in some of my personal buildings and warehouses and office spaces, you don't need any of that. You can do a 2 or 3 inch closed cell spray foam, or a bat, unless it's a specially made bat insulation. It holds no sound deadening value whatsoever. So it's really not needed. I mean, your house will be extremely insulated just with the spray foam. So okay. I'm a huge fan of that. Certain rooms, if you're building theater rooms, or this is going to be a bunk room with an 80-inch TV for the kids, but the living room's right over here and you don't want to hear that. There's some tricks you can do with stud walls to stagger them for noise cancellation and so it doesn't travel through stud walls, but they actually do make some different insulations that's noise canceling as well. That's a great thing I like about spray foam is it does have a noise canceling value. Yeah. I'm sure anybody's been in a tin building when it's been raining or hailing. It's extremely loud. Yeah. So not to dip off into spray foam and insulation conversations, but spray foam, it kind of is a 3-in-1. It's a insulator, it's a noise canceller, and it adds a ton of rigidity. So I'm a huge fan, but I do several different things. I'm a dealer for Simple Saver Insulation, which I think they have a great product. They're out of Nebraska. They're one of the only companies, maybe the only company I know that has a R30 insulation value. It's a vinyl back, and so they have a good product. It's just it doesn't add rigidity value, and it's not necessarily a noise canceller, and it's a real big pain to put on, but it's a good product as well. And vinyl back has been around for 60 years. It's vinyl back. It does the job, but it's my least favorite, I would say, but I sell and install all the above, but that's kind of my take on insulation anyway.
Okay. All right. What about any drawbacks, any cons to metal buildings? I mean, or hiccups?
So I would say if you're doing a pre-engineered building, your drawbacks are, which I sell a few different manufacturers of a pre-engineered, and then my do-it-yourself kit is all designed out of H-beam and I-beam, so it's different than what you're going to go buy off the street.
Okay.
But if you're going and buying a red iron building, I'd say your 3 downfalls are going to be your tapered columns that are going to come out into your living room or somewhere, which I eliminated that problem with my own kit.
Right.
The fact that I don't know about other companies, but I am 8 to 10 weeks out on doing a do-it-yourself kit. If it's manufactured and I'm building it all out of scrap and just hand fabricated, I can have your steel in 3 days. But it falls back to you. You have to do your dirt work. You have to wait for engineering. You have to get it designed. We do our own, renderings, our blueprints, our elevations, your MEPs, which is your mechanical, your electrical, your plumbing. Those stages are all so far out anyway. Okay. I have customers call me all the time and, we got a company that's going to get to it in 30 days. I'm like, well, you got your permits, your dirt work's obviously done, your concrete's done because that's got to cure for X amount of days. You're already ready to rock and roll then, apparently. And they're like, no, we just had this idea last week. And I'm like, you're 4 months out before you're even thinking about doing anything. Right. And then if you're a decent builder, I'm booked out until February of 2025. So a lot of people think, oh, I've got this idea, we're going to rock and roll. But your downfalls on steel is if it's pre-engineered, your columns are going to be tapered. So if you're making a house out of this, you're going to have to figure out what to do with those. Your wait times are going to be 8 to 10 weeks on probably getting a kit to your door. I just shipped 80 by 100 to Nebraska. I'm just getting started on the Fort Myers, Florida guy. I've asked him for a 10-week leadway. Hopefully I can get it done sooner, but that's probably where we're at. And your costs are going to be more, especially if you're a contractor like me and you're only offering 29 gauge sheathing or 26, or better. Your cost is definitely going to be more. And when I don't ever price match anybody, I'm very clear on what my prices are and what I need to make the world go around. And I understand budgets, but people will send me other people's bids and be like, can you meet this? And I start looking down through it and, I'm seeing what they're building out of, and there's no engineering and 29 gauge paneling and this and that. And I can immediately see why they're $15,000 cheaper than me, but it is what it is, I would say that's your biggest downfalls with steel. And a lot of people, they want the quality of steel. They want the strength of steel. They want the maintenance freeness of steel, but they don't want that price of steel. So
yeah, they want the price of wood.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
I understand that. Like I said, it just budgets are what budgets are. All of us are on one, and I think that's the big thing with the barndominium community. Like I think it drove or it's driving a lot of folks are looking at, because housing in general right now is just so inflated, right? From our prior expectations, right? So I've been in my my industry for 31 years, and it's like, we've never seen anything like this. And the issue is we're not going backwards. So costs drive all that. But to the point of cost, I always talk to people about relativity. And here's another example of a metal structure is you're comparing apples to oranges, and so it's relativity of what what's transpiring of and what you're looking to get for expectations. So
that's hard in this community, because people get into the Facebook groups and they're like, oh, what's your per square foot? It's like there's so many variables to all of this.
So many, yeah. And that's why most contractors are hesitant to put prices out there, because there's a million variations and variables. And I'm not necessarily, I'm pretty transparent on that as well. If you're local, I'm going to be somewhere around $40 a square foot base price starting off on your shelf. If you're getting into a turnkey home, I'm going to be 200 plus. And that all just, I just left from a meeting where we're picking out cabinets and countertops and everything. And the customer, from the renderings that we had done to what we're picking out in real person, I said, this is what's going to dictate your overall cost per square foot. In our renderings and in this, you wanted these things, and now we're in real person and you're wanting these, which is fine. And right now it's the time to adjust that. But that's what's going to, that's what's going to change your overall cost. So there's a lot of people that don't like to throw that out there, and it's the same thing with windows. My first barndominium, we did post frame. 3 things I'll never skimp on ever again is my framing, my shell, my windows, and my insulation. Those are 3 things I really skimped on my very first one. And I fought them till the day that I got rid of it. And I'm very, there's the sky's the limit on windows. There's windows that should be in a hobby shop or a ag building, airplane hangar. And then there's windows that are good, but they're not extreme builds. And then there's windows that you're putting in $1 million homes. And I don't ever suggest to put ag windows in your $1 million home or even your $300,000 home. Don't skimp in that area, because especially it's not like a stick built home where you just pop the window out and pop the new one in. There is a lot of work when it comes to changing a window in a barndominium, when you have to you either cut out your flange and your casing and you put in a flangeless window, which I'm not a huge fan of, or you take all your sheathing off, your J trim and jams and header, you slide your new one in, and it's a huge process. If you get a window that's going to last, 25 plus years, you're going to have to worry about down the road. You get a cheaper window. It's kind of like 29 gauge sheathing. It looks great when you're signing the contract, but in 5 years, when you lean up against it and that white chalky residue gets all over your clothes, or red or whatever color it is, and your nephew rides his tricycle through the end of it and it's all beat up from a weed eater, you immediately start thinking, man, this maybe I should have spent the extra money. That's why I don't even offer it, but those type of things are going to what dictate your overall cost. And it's the same thing with post frame, and with stick built. When the customer sees that, $20,000 difference, they're like, oh my gosh, I can put that somewhere else. I can do this. And you can. And ultimately, in 30 years or way less, you're going to start having all these issues, and you're going to be working on your barndominium every weekend when you're not working at your 9 to 5. And you're going to quickly start hating the process, and we should have just done a regular home and this and this. So I have a lot of, I don't want to say negatives, but I have a lot of reasons why I don't even offer post frame. I do love the look of a post frame building. The decorative gable cathedral type porches look amazing. And the overall finish the first several years is beautiful. After that's what really got me. Here's one example of many. I get up very early, my wife and I, about 4:00 in the morning. We are what our friends call sunset and sunrise nerds. We like watching the sun come up. We like watching it set. And so we had a pretty cool front porch and a pretty cool back porch. We used 6x6 treated cedar on the front porch, but by like year 4, they are twisting and they're splitting. It was a really weird series of how these did this, but as it twists and the sun kept hitting a new spot, it just kept doing this. People actually thought that we had done that on purpose, and we never had. It was just basically sun hitting it and just decaying it as it went. with steel, you never worry about that. There is customers that really like the wood look of a post frame. And what we do on those is we just use a steel post. It's HHS with a hollow. Basically, it's either rec tubing or square tubing, and you can wrap that with a 3/4 cedar plank that staples together. And in 5 years, when it's junk, like your normal 6x6 cedar would be, you just pull those planks off and you put brand new treated 3/4 inch or 1 inch cedar planks on there, and it's brand new again. But the structural and the integrity of your building has never been jeopardized from start to finish.
Oh, wow.
So you can still get the wood structure look. You can still do a tongue and groove, a soffit. Those things that hit the sun are always going to be an issue when you're in post frame. It's no different than your background here. That's the rotted barnwood. It's a beautiful look, but that is caused from sun decay. People worry everybody that I'm building for, they're like, man, I don't want my boat to get rained on, and I don't want my camper to get hailed on, and I'm worried about the snow and the ice. Number one problem with anything in the United States is sun. So sun does more damage than any other natural weather in existence. So whether that's the upholstery on your boat, the tires on your camper, the siding on your camper, you name it, it's sun. The sun hitting it is the issue, and it's no different on your. You can go to all these decks that we see at all these docks on these lakes that we're building at, and they're rotted and they're sagging and they're twisting. The two things that are killing those is the moisture from either the humidity or the lake, and being beat down by sun. That's what damages those. And
what about fade? I'm sorry to cut, but I got to thinking. You're saying sun, because I see a lot of questions. People a lot of times, inside the communities talking about like, oh, the metal, don't buy black metal because it's going to fade, and after 2 or 3 years, because again, I haven't been in the barndominium community long enough, like 30 years. What's your opinion about that?
So if you buy a cheap 29 gauge paneling, it will fade.
Okay.
If you get a good 26 gauge, almost all of them have a 40, 50, or lifetime paint warranty on them now.
Okay.
This is what I will tell you about lifetime paint warranty. Is no different than a 40-year paint warranty. The panel's the same. The quality of paint's the same. They just know whoever's distributing it as a lifetime paint warranty know they're going to be dead by the time you need it again. So there's a lot of people that say, I advertise mine as a 40-year paint warranty because that's what it is. And they'll say, well, I can buy it down here and it's lifetime. It's a lifetime because they're 53 years old and they're not going to have to deal with it if there's an issue in 40 years. I'm in my mid 40s. I won't have to deal with it, but I'm still going to be straight with you. I'm not going to send you down this line of it's going to last a lifetime. At some point it is going to have to be changed, but there's no, that's just another thing with the 29 gauge paneling. They have got some that have better paint warranties, but if you get a good paneling, doesn't matter what color it is, red, black, brown, charcoal, you're not going to experience fading more than likely in your lifetime. What you really have to worry about in those aspects, when people install them and they don't blow off all their metal shavings on your roofs, or they're cutting them with a zip disc instead of a nibbler and a shear like it's designed to, you will start getting rust issues. And that's just from a lack of quality work, if you will. That's basically that's a craftsmanship issue there. But I just seen one yesterday. I wish I could show you the pictures. They sent me pictures. They said, and at the bottom of the roof eave, they had probably 2 inches of rust on this roof. And I don't know who did this, and it's none of my business. But I looked at it immediately and was like, yes, I understand what's happened there. They've cut that with a zip disc, which is what goes on the end of a grinder. Anything that generates heat voids your paint warranty. So they said, can I turn this into the manufacturer because it's only been on here like X amount of years? And I said, you can all you want, but they are not oblivious to what happened here. I can see exactly what happened. There's heat transfer there, and it boils that paint back, and then in a second it gets water on it, it starts rusting. If you follow my Facebook page at Midwest Erecting and Fabrication, I have multiple different roofs that I've been on that are covered in rust, and it's because when they finish doing the roof, they don't take a leaf blower up there or a broom or whatever, and sweep off and blow off all the metal shavings. So that's what you'll start experiencing even with 29 gauge. They let all those metal shavings sit up there. And again, it's just a lack of quality. And the customer's never going to see them because it's 16 foot in the air and it starts rusting because it sits up there in the rain. And you would think that rain would rinse that off on a 412 roof pitch, but it does not. So that's what you have to worry about in that situation. And I see it a lot on these Barndominium pages as well. You will see the tin at the bottom, maybe at their tin notch or their sheet ledge on the concrete slab rusting.
Yeah.
And you see it a lot. And I actually take a 3/16 piece of plexiglass. Every single one of my crews has multiple ones on trucks. If I ever walk up to one that doesn't have it, it immediately does. We slide a 48-inch piece of 3/16 plexiglass down the sheet ledge or the tin notch of our concrete slab as you're putting on your sidewall sheets. So what that does is that keeps your tin off your concrete. Your concrete will transfer different chemicals and stuff along those lines that will start rusting your panels at the bottom. They are actually, if a manufacturer sees your panels sitting on concrete, 9 times out of 10, they will not warranty it for that reason. So even though it has a tin notch and a sheet ledge, what some people call it, it is not to sit your panel down on. So I set a piece of plexiglass underneath there. It gives it a 3/16 bumper. You screw everything off and then you pull that out, and it's as you're walking down the building, it virtually looks like it's sitting on it. But if you get down on your hands and knees, you'll notice there's a 3/16 gap in there. So
what seals that up at the bottom? Is it the spray foam that seals it up afterwards? What is there?
That's a loaded question. A lot of people, you're supposed to have a foam closure that goes along that bottom.
Okay.
And it is profiled exactly like whatever panel. Let's say you're putting on an R panel, PBR. It's got 1.25 inch profile every 12 inches. So you'll have a foam closure that fills that void that goes up to your rack guard and your base angle on the inside. But again, a little bit of incompetency. People leave those foam closures out because they say, oh, we're just going to spray foam it. Don't do that, because what will happen is you'll get bugs and rodents and whatnot that can actually chew through your spray foam and eventually get inside. But out of sight, out of mind, most people don't put them in and just come in and spray foam real quick, and the customer never knows, none the wiser. So there's a lot of tricks of the trade that I'm sitting here, and I could tell you these for hours and hours of days of what
your point though, like that's the thing, Nick. Like I love having the top professionals in the barndominium community inside of Project Barndo, so that people can see, when we think of the DIY, which I give so many people, kudos to for taking on a project like that. I mean, it's inspirational in some way.
Yeah, huge.
But I know that like I've got 31 years of knowledge in my trade, and to have like that, those details you're talking about, and try to condense those for each element of a build process is so incredibly challenging. There's no doubt, because again, I've GC'd 2 of my own projects, but it's doing that. It's like I also know what I don't know what I don't know, and there's so much there that it is that's the part to me where it's like I always lean towards the professionals, because and again, I know people's argument like, well, how do you know the professional? Like, well, which tees me up for this question. So because I've had you on here now, it cracks me up, because I always try to keep these like, oh, we're gonna do this for like 15 minutes because people lose their, but you get going and you got so much information. We're almost 30 minutes in, over 30 mintes in.
That's fine.
Here's the question: like, how do people? What are the questions you would have people ask? They want to do a metal building, and whether it's a kit package, hiring a contractor. What's the question? 1 or 2 questions you like they can't miss. Like, this is the question you have to know that really will raise the red flags, or say, yeah, that's the green light. What should they be aware of?
If they're trying to, let me understand the question. Are you asking? Are they trying to pick out what are the clues to picking out a good contractor?
Yeah, let's go with that. Yep.